Good morning. We got that reggaeton going on. This is Sales Chatter, the logistics podcast where we aim to help 10,000 reps hit a million GP. I'm your co-host, Ryan Mohamed, aka the Logistics Monk. With me is my good friend, Deigan. What's going on this morning, brother?
How
What?
you doing, brother? Oh, beauty day today, beauty day. I'm really excited for today because today we're going to find out if what we said yesterday was actually accurate in some way, shape, or form. And I'm already planning my rebuttals if it's not. So I'm good. I'm golden.
All right, well,
I'm ready to go.
all right. Without
I'm
further
ready
ado,
to
let's
go.
get into it, my man.
Yeah, man.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Kat. Good morning, Lisa. So today, Ryan, today we've got a dear friend of mine, been a customer of mine, uh, been a sales lead of mine for a good year and a half before he became a customer of mine. So we've had lots of conversations, and I thought it'd be a perfect addition to talk about, how do we ask customers for money, and how do we do it in a manner in which everyone feels like they win. Like Dean always says, leave something on the table for somebody else. Like everybody's got to have a win here. It's not just about what's happened during COVID, and now it's really bringing the entire industry to the forefront and saying, this is what's going on. This is what I believe is happening. And Greg is an absolute gem when it comes to this. He's been on the carrier side, been on the shipper side for quite a while now. And so he's got a vast knowledge of the industry. So when working with somebody like this, I think it's a little bit to our advantage, the way that we are as salespeople. But I hope it brings the whole audience a real good scope of what the clients are thinking. So if you can bring Greg in, everybody, this is our dear friend, Greg, coming to us from Wisconsin. What's going on, my man?
It's all good. I'm so happy to be. It's been about a year since I've been on, so I'm really
I think
excited to be
so.
invited back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, were you not? You were on the last time I think you were on. It was the special, the all day stream, wasn't it? Or was it?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. So
yes.
that was a while ago. Wow. Yeah, that was like a year and a bit ago, I think. But yeah, good times, good times, brother. So, Greg, before we get into asking for money, when you and I were talking, kind of setting today up, you'd mentioned something that I think will be really, really key for a lot of individuals watching. Your business that you're in right now deals a lot in retail. What does the retail market look like, and what does that tell you about the industry as a whole?
So it's been really interesting. I've often joked that I went from the dark side to the light when I went from the carrier side to the shipper side, and I'm not quite sure if I'm on the light now. Although it looks like my background I can't blur out enough. It's a nice sunny day here for once, so I think I'm still in the light. So, it's been really interesting to come in right at the end of the pandemic and see
Yep.
some and see switching companies and then going not only to a different industry but to a different company and seeing and hearing some of the things that this company went through during the pandemic and then how we started coming out, because I think it was almost like a light switch flipped about the second half of last year. So freight rates started going down, being on the retail side and understanding what our customers were looking for and some of the challenges that they had. It's not really a one-for-one comparable to what I was seeing on the manufacturing side. So on the retail side, what we're hearing is it's all about cost. So every discussion with the retailer that we're having is, they're asking us for money. So basically, what can we do to discount products to make it more amenable for them and more possible for them to sell to the end consumer. And you're seeing some of the challenges and some of the financial results that companies are releasing. I think Costco and Macy's last week reduced their earnings prospects for the end of the year. I think there's a lot of challenges out there. It's really related to what is the economy going to do in 6 months. It's been forecast that at least the U.S. was going to go into a recession in 2023. Now they're saying maybe it's 2024, because every time that on the U.S. side that the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, the U.S. economy, for some reason, just keeps adding jobs. So they're trying to cool off the market, and it's not really working. The consumer is proving to be very resilient, working through inflation, but it's all about cost. It really relates to the inventory. So for one of the challenges that we have is, yeah, we want to make sales to our retail customers, and we have the product that they want. But mainly because of the freight rates, our cost is too high. So how do we get to a level where we can sell to our customer at a discount rate that they are comfortable with, that they can sell to the end customer, and work through that inventory? So it's been a lot of give and take, a lot of pull and push, back and forth. I think the major retailers are also going through an evolution. That during the pandemic, they were very heavy in e-com. And now that's kind of starting to switch because people want to go back into the stores. And so I think that switch has been pretty big, and the pendulum is swinging back and forth, and everybody's just trying to figure out where it's going to land and what their long-term strategies and processes are.
So, Greg, do you, and I know every company does, what is the percentage of your goods that you guys originally had applied for freight, and where has that moved to?
So we use a thing called the moving average cost. So we're actually very good at understanding from before we actually place the purchase order, what our cost is going to be to land it at that customer. And so then we do some backwards calculations, adding in SG&A, warehousing costs, so on and so forth, to understand what we're going to be able to sell it to our customers. And then on the retail side, what's been real interesting is I thought small package and LTL pricing was about the worst thing out there, trying to figure out all the different calculations. Retail's even more. It's much more challenging because, if we have a product for X that we need to sell, we know how much we bought it for. We have a pretty good idea of what Y is and the discount rate that needs to be applied to sell it to that customer because of the markups that they're going to have to the end customer. So it's a big challenge. I would say in general, over the past, it's coming up probably on about 12 months now, 9 months at least, we have seen a gradual degradation of those costs. So our landed costs are coming in lower and lower. But we've had the challenge that we had to work through all that old inventory at a higher cost, which I think at our organization, we're pretty much through. So we're getting to cleaner, lower freight costs now, which is making it a little bit easier to have those discussions with the retailers.
Okay. So are you in like that 5 to 6% range? Or are you more up in that 7 or 8% range when you're talking overall freight costs based on your overall cost of goods and like to get it to the store?
I would say it was probably in the 20s through most of the pandemic. Yeah. Now it's getting down closer to single digits.
Okay. Okay. Because that was one of the things during the pandemic that was just killing so many companies. I mean, even at your old company, even in the manufacturing side, what are the differences between what you heard about the pandemic on the retail side versus where you were on the manufacturing side going through it?
I think it would probably be a little bit easier on the manufacturing side because you have more control over the price and your sell price. A lot of pressure on that side, however, also. On the retail side, I think it's more severe because not only are your costs going down, you know what your costs are, the retailers are pushing harder and harder, trying to get their retail price down. And the markup is pretty substantial, as it should be, from the retail to customers. So the delta is much bigger on the retail side. So the cost pressure on the freight, much higher on the retail side than on the manufacturing side, especially if you're selling to a brick and mortar, like one of the big box stores. The price pressure is much higher.
Yeah, because they want to still make their 50 points or 38 points, I think Costco is, or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Ryan, any questions before we dive into the big question?
Yeah, of course. No, I think everything you just said, we've got a lot of like our show is kind of geared for like newer people watching the show. Everything that you've kind of explained as somebody who wants to get into retail, how open are you to like having conversations with people? And we're not telling people to flood your inboxes, don't worry. But to understand that side of the business because like we have like Kat just kind of mentioned, like I have so much to learn. And these are things that you really can't read in books, something you really can't be taught in school. It's something that you kind of really have those conversations with people so that as you're mentioning, hey, if we're going into retail, maybe I need to be more cost effective here and kind of present that solution to my supplier and my customer so that we're all winning at the end of the day rather than, hey, I'm just submitting a paper rate here and we hope that it's gonna take and we don't know the reason why it has to be this way.
Yeah. So I've been in one, two, three, four, five different industries right now. So I'm living proof that you can cross industries. So, right to your question about retail, is retail different than on the manufacturing side? Yes, absolutely it is. I think you probably see on the logistics side too, there's probably more pressure on the retail side on your costs, just because of the same reasons that I spoke about that we have. The retailers are constantly pushing down their costs and trying to contain costs because to keep their margins viable on that side. So my advice would be that you just have to ask the questions and you have to learn about it and be flexible. And we'll get to that question when we get to the part about asking me for more money. How does it work? But I think retail specifically is probably the most cost conscious industry that I've worked in previously, just because there's so many hands into it too. And I mentioned it previously that the cost structure is much more complicated on the retail side. It is because there's a lot of givebacks depending on which retailers that you're working with. Then you also, on the logistics side, have the additional challenges of the penalties about making appointments, sending ASN, so on and so forth. So that is definitely a cost driver. I think in my experience, it's probably been the last 10 years or so that the retailers have gotten much more directive with those costs and much more challenging. And so the biggest challenge with that is that when you're building your cost structure in, you have to account for a lot of what ifs that you don't know what it was going to be. So you may price something that you think is very profitable. And then once you start getting to those chargebacks, it turns unprofitable very quickly. So I think that's the biggest challenge on the retail side is about really understanding what your costs are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of variables that you have to take into consideration when it comes to your costs. It's not as easy as raw goods coming in. Here's the cost to manufacture, and here's the cost to ship it to a customer that's going to do whatever they're going to do to it. You have a lot more nickels and dimes to count, I guess, if you're going to say it. And then now, do you have on your retail side, with that inventory that you had, are you seeing a lot of people on the retail side just kind of blowing it out at a loss just to get rid of it because the cost of warehousing it would be more expensive than just taking a loss on it in the store? Or what was kind of the process? Because we see a lot, like every store you go into, you see blowouts from last year, 2 years ago. It's old model, we're getting rid of it at 50% off. What was your strategy and what have you seen in that market?
So yes, it has to be very prescriptive though, because you can ruin your entire year budget just by trying to say, hey, I want to get rid of this. I don't want it in my warehouse anymore. It's gathering dust. I've learned a lot of new terms on the retail side about talking about product that has birthdays in the warehouse, and and some of the acronyms, they don't match up quite well with the logistics supply chain side that I've been used to. But we're very conscious about. We have to kind of trickle it through. So we didn't try to do a big bang and we're going to take a $10 million loss because we're going to just jet all this out to free up our warehouse. To myself and my buyers, we try to be prescriptive and say, okay, we don't want to just get rid of it because warehouse space is finite. But at the same time, we have the capacity to carry goods if we need to. But I don't want to take a $10 million loss. And in particular, I don't want to take a loss and then not have anything to replace it. So if we have an opportunity that say, hey, I can blow out all this inventory because it's a good selling item in general, blow it out at the higher cost, just get rid of it, and then bring it in on the lower cost as long as I'm able to get sales behind it. to kind of
Yes.
buffer that. So that's that's been one of the big challenges. I think in this organization we've done a good job with it. But the real challenge we have is going out there and talking about the white space with our customers and with our vendors about where can we sell, how can we sell it, and then capitalizing upon those opportunities. So, hey, now I've got a bunch of warehouse space, I've got lower cost freight. What am I going to go out to do my value proposition to those retailers to keep that inventory now moving more fluid and at a price point that I'm comfortable with?
Mm-hmm. I noticed when you were talking there, it sounds like you have a lot of collaboration between your retailers and your sales team and everything. It's not just a conversation of how many units do you want, it's how can we make this profitable together.
Yeah, and this is my first time on the distributor side as a pure distributor about, what are some of the expectations on forecasting is a big challenge. That, hey, if you put a forecast out there, and the part of the reason I have that older inventory is that nobody ever took it. So where does the accountability lie? That, hey, you put a forecast in for 500 units for May, and you haven't taken them yet. When are you going to take them? And who's going to be left holding the bag on the inventory? So that's another big challenge. A lot of our customers expect retailers to be, it's not the right term, but it's one that I'm familiar with, about we're the junk drawer. So anytime that they want to be able to order a unit, that we have it in stock. Well, there's a cost to holding that unit too. So we need to do it smartly. A lot of data analysis, a lot of forecasting, a lot of collaboration between both our vendors and our customers, because everybody wants the same thing at the end of the day, which is to make the purchases, to sell them at a price that moves with high velocity, and to keep the whole chain moving quickly.
Yeah, and I guess you got a lot of geographicality too when it comes to which areas are buying what products.
Yes, and
Yeah.
this organization is positioned really well. There we have a facility in Wisconsin, one in Savannah, Georgia, one in Los Angeles, so that we can cover pretty much the entire, I would say North America, but not a lot of people can take into account Canada when they're talking about that. But we're positioned that we're Amazon certified, so that we can service any point within 2 business days.
Beautiful. That's good. That's good. You see Greg, you understand what geographicality is. See what I'm saying? Ryan's still trying to get over it. He's laughing to himself right there.
Yeah, make it seem like we're hooked on phonics over here, So there.
See how smooth that came out? And Greg was like, yeah, man, for sure. We got points here, points there. See, it's all knowledge. So Greg, how does a salesperson ask you for money? How do they ask you for raises in the market? How do they ask you for more money on a shipment, whether it be a single shipment, long-term raise on a specific lane? Start at the top and let's kind of work our way through. Let's talk about single shipments at this point. Somebody says, Greg, I could do that for $1,500. 2 days later, you call him and he says, hey, it's not quite 1,500 anymore.
So I've said this before. I don't believe there are too many win-win situations out there. It's give a little to get a little. So if somebody comes to me, my general way of doing things is that, and I realize that I'm an exception to this, is that I'm very loyal to my carrier. And we're just going to talk about logistics right now. So
Yep.
I am very loyal to my logistics partners, and they are legitimately partners. And so what I'm looking at is rate is only one component of what we're doing. So what I'm looking at is the whole package. So how much support are you going to give me so that if you're picking up on a Monday, that I know it's going to deliver on Wednesday and it's going to deliver intact, claim-free, without any chargebacks. So to me, it's a full value proposition. So are you going to do what you say and say what you do? Are you going to invoice me correctly? Are you going to be ETDBW, easy to do business with? Are you going to make me a better organization? So if you ask me for more money, you have to have a basis for it. And I am willing to pay more, even in this market, for someone that is going to make my life easier. So It's not all about rate, which means Johnny come lately coming off the street and saying, which I get these messages every day in 5 or 6 ways, that messages that I have the cheapest rates. I have these rates of $1,100 a container, for example. You need to choose me. Well, what's my value proposition with that? How are you going to make me a better business? And we've had these discussions also in the past that, well, Greg, that's all fine and dandy, but if you don't give me a chance, how can I actually prove my worth to you? And yes, I understand that, and I feel comfortable saying that. But the summary of all that is, what else are you going to do to make my organization better? Because if you are going to deliver on time and clean free, you are giving me an advantage versus other manufacturers and other distributors, because then my end customer isn't going to have stockouts. They're going to have high fulfillment rates. They are going to have correct invoicing so that we keep the cash flowing back and forth most effectively. So high level is, you can lead with rate and you can lead with coming to me with more, saying I want more money, but you better have some kind of backing for it about what you're going to be giving me in addition. That is a value proposition that I can sell to my organization. So who won? Who won, Ryan or Dan? Who won?
So
I think I think it was a tie. I think we both
Yeah,
had
I
to say,
think so.
especially. I think I know I made a point yesterday about the customer's customer. Making a point to kind of say that. But when you said, I think we won and lost a little bit too, because like you
Yes.
brought up so many good points, like easy to do business with, and that it's one part of your operations and your business, right? And there's a quick story I want to share with both of you that I read yesterday. There was this other sales rep. He saved $150 to take Spirit Airlines on a trip to go from A to B. And when he got there was a different line. He had to pay for peanuts. He had to pay for his checked bag. And when he did the cost savings, it was $25. But he said he related it to sales, where it's like, don't sell the plane. Everyone's talking about the rate. Everybody can get on a plane. The plane has 2 wings. Sell the soar back. Sell the $14 paying for peanuts. Sell the soar points. Right. And when I'm talking to a client like yourself, Greg, I sell that, right? Like you just said, if you have a leg up, just buy your shipment delivering on time and claim free. I'm sorry, and I might say something completely wrong here. To me, that's freaking easy. That's the easiest part of the game, without anything
That's
that's kind
almost
of going on.
mandatory.
Thank you,
Like,
right? So
you
I
know
can
what
do
I
that
mean?
like clockwork, like clockwork. So if you're telling me that if I can do those things, you have a leg up on your customers, there's no stockouts, all those things, then lead with that. Lead with that, how you can lead with your customers. So great points.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll give you a real life example too. So I did an RFP late last year, early into this year. So first RFP that going through with my new organization, and we use at the time we were using 2 PO management systems, so that our vendors would add POs in and confirming quantities overseas, so on and so forth. The first step that we went through is on that PO management system, trying to get down to 1. And so the organization that we decided not to choose had a lot of invoicing issues, wasn't taking care and custody of our freight, limited visibility. The other organization was showing it. So they were higher cost. Organization 2 was higher cost, but they were making us a better organization and providing visibility without the organization. So it made an easier choice. Their invoicing processes are much more accurate. It's one and done. There are no going back to them and saying, hey, you billed me $1,000 and your tariff says $850. It's done the first time. And so that made an easy decision. When I was looking at the carriers, I wasn't familiar with any of the carriers that we were going through. I had not used them in my previous life. So I had to rely on feedback, but the carriers that won had a solution for how they were going to integrate with our PO management system on time when we expected to do it, what resources they were going to put against it so that we were going to get the visibility. I think we did a good job of explaining in advance to all the carriers what we were expecting, and they achieved it. Now, we had 2 carriers that said they were going to do it, and we gave them 3 months to do it, and they were never able to get there. So we switched back to we gave freight to other carriers that we had on. So that was at a higher cost also. So, I look at one of the other things that cost a lot of companies money during the pandemic was detention and demurrage at the ports. We had many of the carriers come to us saying, hey, we want more freight. And what we're willing to do is we will give you 10 days free at the port instead of the 4 that you're having for somebody else. And we are going to lower your overall cost if you give us more freight. So, in the spirit of clients asking for more money, yes, I paid more money, but I actually saved money on my bottom line as a result. And that was what was more important. So
Now, what about, did you ever have conversations? Because I also know during the pandemic and even now, there seems to be more and more wait times on docks and more issues on docks with drivers and delays and all that. What did you guys do as a corporation to say, okay, not only are you guys helping us here, but what we're going to do is we're going to help you here? Was there any of that?
Yes. So we also implemented a new broker, and customs broker. And when doing that, we extended the DOs. So instead of giving them to when the container was released and issuing the DO as we had before, the delivery order, what we were doing is we're issuing that delivery order 7 days in advance. So it gave the carriers more opportunity to schedule appointments at the port. And so, and it helped, I think, the carriers to plan out their days a little bit better too. So you have to look at both sides. It's not just about the carrier to figure it out. We had a lot of open conversations with the carriers saying, okay, what do you need from us to make you more effective? And the net on that was that the carriers are more successful. They're able to utilize their equipment and their drivers more effectively to put more revenue on that truck on a daily basis to benefit their bottom line and also benefiting our bottom line. So I guess that's a little bit contrary to my point about no win-wins out there. That one might have actually been one, but
Yeah, for sure.
but for me, I do not have an arm's length relationship with our carriers. They are our partner, and I think that's where you really get the benefits. If you find a shipper like that is willing to collaborate with you, that's where you have the opportunities to really positively impact your bottom line.
So here's a question for you. Do you find in conversations with colleagues, with people in other companies, with some of the functions you go to, do you find that a lot of traffic managers are leaning towards that relationship based? Because COVID, I think, I know COVID, and I know we're talking a lot about the pandemic, but I think COVID was a big slap in the face for companies to realize how much money they can actually lose in their supply chain if it's not done correctly and if the relationships aren't there and all that. What are you finding from that relationship level? Speaking to people, I used to be all about price. Now I want to kind of lock people in. You finding any of that, or is it status quo?
Yeah, so I'm not dealing with the same carriers really that I was during the pandemic, but talking to my peers, there's damage control that's going on right now about saying, hey, I was charging you $20,000 a container during the pandemic because that's what the rates were. And I'm not playing bait and switch now that it's $1,500 a container. But there is a lot of damage control based upon the relationships that need repair. I'm not naive. I know it wasn't the carriers that were doing it. It's what the market was. We spent a lot of time going through that. But I do think there's a lot of relationship rebuilding that needs to happen, trust factors. And I think having very open, honest conversations about that is very helpful. That's not only going to help you with new customers, but that's going to help you with your existing book of business also.
Mm-hmm. So how did what do you see here, Ryan? We kind of won a few and we missed a few, I think. I'm not going to say lost, but we missed a few.
Yeah, I think, well, you know what? I don't think that we took losses like as per se on it, because you and I wanted to focus both on that specific question. Like, I know my mindset coming into it. I didn't want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about the point that I got to pick up the phone and give my customer a call and let them know that, hey, I'm going to need some more money on this, right? And, Greg made some great points about being a partner, and that's something that we always talk about. So for anybody who's out there, like even the sales rep I was talking to this morning, like you might be blasting out 100 calls a day, and, you just kind of need that one gold nugget to kind of keep going forward, because trust me, Greg is a living example out there. There is customers like that who actually want to be a partner and don't want you to be on a blast master list. Like we were joking before that I did an RFP, finish up RFP yesterday of like 3,200 lanes. And, and I'm thinking about, are these guys really relationship based? Like who has the time to like manage that whole flow? But when you look at a customer like who's working with Greg, who's like, hey, I want to treat my guys right, and they're going to treat us right. It has to be, like you said, there's not much win-wins, but I think that customs broker change was probably one of the best things he could have done, because that's one of the complaints that we hear. And it kind of makes it easier for like a true professional, because do not come in there and sell rates or sell capacity, because we can't do that. Sell opportunity. And the opportunity is in warehousing, like as Greg was saying, like, what are we going to do with like birthdays on some of these SKUs and things like that, right? Well, try to figure out a solution, right? Hermosi always says that if you want to really get customers, do stuff for free. Show them, hey, I came up with this proposal. What do you think about that? So coming back to it, Dan, I think you and I were both, I wouldn't say right, I don't want to be righteous about it, but I think we were on the right path.
Yes.
And that's because of our history working with amazing customers like Greg, right?
Yeah.
So we're 1-in-1, right? So.
Yeah, I really like, and one thing, like big takeaway for me from this whole conversation is, how are you going to make my organization better? And as a salesperson, that started immediately turning the gears, and you guys probably saw the smoke coming out of my ears, and the grinding that was going on in the old brain. But it's to me, I'm sitting there going, wow, never once did we yesterday say, we were talking about like bringing market facts to the market, bringing, helping the client understand what's going on in their market. If they don't, is the reason we need more money. Spot market versus, cost plus versus contract market and all that kind of stuff. But focusing on ease of doing business, focusing on, what else are you going to do to make my business run better? How are you going to ease and make me a better organization as a whole? And what are the value can you bring to the table, and maybe explaining how you plan on doing it. I think those are amazing things that I think we might have touched on, Ryan, but I think in a different way that we touched on them.
Well, when Greg mentions like invoicing, right? You have that to make it so simple. It's the things that we can control. I can make invoicing easier for your customer. We can't control when the truck is going to be there, but at the end of the day, we can take those steps for there. So the things that we can kind of provide that we control, those are value adds, and don't think like they're just mandatory. Like both you and I were kind of saying, no, these things are mandatory, but understand that it is a value add. And Greg has mentioned multiple times here, like you have that value add, you have that value prop from him himself talking to retailers. So what is our value prop to an amazing customer like Greg and his customer, right? And then kind of get from there. So I thought it was, I thought I'm excited. I'm really happy with how this led.
Me too. I like it. It's given me a new little vibration to go into today with, right? Something different to talk about. Yep.
Yeah, Dan's gonna be asking all of his customers for $5,000 more because he wants to.
Because I'm making your organization better.
Just make sure you don't have me on that call list today, Dan, okay?
No, I won't.
Okay.
$10,000 for you. I'm just going to add another zero.
Thanks, buddy.
Greg, buddy, I love you, man. You know me.
Yeah, I gotta say something. Greg, I think this is about the second or third time that you've been on the show, and just hearing how you were like at the previous place and different things like that. I can tell right now, like you're energetic and you're vibrant. I can see like things are really going good, and you're really, like you said at the beginning, there's 5 different industries that you work in, but I don't know, for something I'm just getting the vibes of like, everything's clicking right now, and I think maybe is what I'm saying a little bit correct, or?
Yeah, it is, and it's it's really about the people, and it's that I get to work with really good people internally and externally on a daily basis. I mean, I see we have one of my carriers on the call with us, and it's those type of people that have made me successful in my career. It's not about me; it's about the people around me, and it is a better spot. It's still in headwinds. I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to look like pre-COVID again. We still have some choppy water to work through at the end of this year, but I do feel that a lot of things are going in the right direction. So I'm an optimist.
I love that. It's
awesome. Did you get what Greg just said there? The carriers have made me successful. And I think that is, for all of you new reps out there are customers like this out there. Not everyone cares about who's can be $10, and you get a few customers like that, and your life changes, man. Your life changes. I love that, Greg. I love that, because really, like, there's a synchronicity that goes in this industry, right? Without the suppliers to get the product to market, your product never gets to market. But without you, we don't have a business of getting product to market. So it has to be this complete mesh. And I think sometimes we're so segregated and separated in our mentality of broker, carrier, customer. You know, like you were talking about big box stores versus mom and pops. You know, carriers do it all the time. I was at a carrier for 3/4 of a decade, and it was like, well, if it's a broker, we'll give them $1,200. If it's an in-house customer, they're $1,400. And it's like, and there's always these variations that we're operating in this industry. And it was actually wild to me when I first got into the carrier side, where I was like, you what? They're like, yeah, if it's a broker, we let them, make $150, $200. We don't charge them as much. But if it's a customer, well, it's direct, we're going to charge them more. And I'm like, really? That, like, for sure, why not? I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. I didn't make it up. Just, it is what it was. And so it was like, but then you have the brokers who say, well, there's always a $50 to $100 negotiation in any price a carrier gives you, right? You've all heard that as well. And it's like, is there really? And tomorrow we've got a 1,000 truck trucking company coming on to talk about those exact things. Is there a buffer? Or what do we need, and how do we ask for more money from our suppliers? And I think it's going to come back to the same things. Okay, well, if you want more money, you need me to drop my price to give you more profit. What are you going to do for me in order to help that work? Like, you're going to reduce my demurrage time. You're going to reduce my downtime. You're going to allow me to drop and swap trailers. Like, all these conversations. And I would always say it's a three-way street. Get your supplier, get your customer, and you sit down and everybody have the conversation.
I agree.
Yeah. Sweet.
There we go. That's
We were
awesome.
on it, brother. We were on it.
Yeah, we cracked it. We cracked it. It was awesome kind of thing here. So Greg, we can't thank you enough for coming out today and making us feel a little bit better of feeling a little bit right on this amazing topic that we're having here. For people who are, I'm not going to, like I said at the beginning, we're not trying to have people blow up your things like that, but how can people learn more about your business and all that stuff online?
Okay. So the company is E as in Edward, M as in Mary, G as in Greg, EMG USA. We have distribution mainly in North America. I'm not going to give you my email because that gets my logistics manager off the hook. But our international logistics manager is Suzanne, who some of you are familiar with. Her email is smichelle.
No, don't do that.
No. We're gonna blur.
She needs stuff to do. I have to do a wellness check with her this week.
Wait, Greg, what is that email again? We gotta.
We're gonna do this.
We're good. But one last thing before I check out. One quote that I just got finished reading the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight for Nike. One quote that he had that I think applies to everybody on this and for the groups that you're working with is belief is irresistible. So believe in yourself, project that belief to any customer, any person that you're meeting out there, and it makes a big difference. So believe in yourself, believe in what you're selling. It makes it a lot easier to sell. So easier said than done, but to me, that's a core foundation. That belief is irresistible.
I love that. And it's so true, because when you believe, people hear it in your voice.
Yep.
They hear the passion, they hear the belief in your voice, and it becomes, you bring people into a movement instead of selling them.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Love that.
Love that so much. And like we said, that was awesome. Just have that feedback, and definitely everybody check out Phil Knight's book. Shoe Dog is one of my favorite books out there. Hopefully are amazing. Hopefully be able to buy the Blazers if you're a basketball fan. But this is Sales Chatter, the logistics podcast where we aim to help 10,000 reps hit 1 million GP. We will be hitting the replay again at 3 p.m. today on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you found value in this, which I know you did, there was so many nuggets in there. Please share this with a friend, share this with a neighbor, share this with anybody's coming down, even one of Greg's trucks that are coming down with their delivery drivers to bring their amazing retail products. Please make sure you like and comment and share. And Dano, please take us home.
Oh, you know what? I just actually had thought of something. So, Greg, do you consistently want to deal with the pros?
I don't like dealing with amateurs, but yes.
There we go. There we go. Right. So it's something Ryan and I have been talking about a lot lately. Hey, everybody. So we're broadcasting from our Sales Chatter live page. We're put up, Ryan, if you could throw up that QR code to get everybody over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel so that they can actually, sorry, Greg, we took away half your face there, but that's okay. So if you go on over, subscribe, hit the little bell on YouTube, you know, all the ding, dang, that's going to tell you when we go live. We're trying to push everybody over to the YouTube channel. Sales Chatter live, and I think that's it. We're good, man. That's a good day.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, thanks for being here, brother.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.